or pre-assigned, I guess rather, implementation method for you. So we'll go through all of those different options. The reporting, lightly, we'll talk about that. And then if you guys have any questions, please feel free to let us know. We'll have a Q&A section at the end. So if you could wait, or if you have a question and you want to drop them in the chat while you're thinking about it during the presentation, we will go ahead and answer those at the end of the call. But that way we have like a running list of questions as we kind of go through. And then of course, at the end, we can pass the mic, I guess, and you can unmute to ask additional questions if you should have any. If you do have a question on your pre-assigned implementation method, please let us know, and we can make sure that you get that information during this call as well. So I don't see anyone else in the group, or in the group chat, in the waiting room. So I think we can go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to our, I guess, second year of the Farmers Market Nutrition Program Implementation Training Session. This is a little different from last year for those of you who are able to join us then. But it is relatively similar. So again, if you have any questions, just feel free to drop those in the chat. So as many of you know, I am Katie Weaver, manager of the Grow the Good program, and then Chelsea Jackson is our program director. We will ensure that the PDF, or that this presentation does get PDF'd to you guys after this meeting. So you will have access to our individual contact information. I know most of our communications get sent through the Grow the Good email, but that way you'll have our individual emails and phone numbers as well for this call. All right, so getting started, and I'm gonna hope that my dogs don't bark because the UPS man just pulled up to one of the houses across the street. So program requirements. Requirements for existing partners who wish to add on a Grow the Good funded FMNP incentive program must be in good standing and then must sign an FMNP amendment and adhere to both the conditions of that amendment and the LDAF requirements. Requirements for new partners: complete a Grow the Good application and projected budget. An internal review and a site capacity evaluation will be done by either myself and or Chelsea. And then if approved, you must sign an FMNP agreement with Grow the Good and adhere to both the conditions of that agreement and LDAF requirements through the FMNP program itself. Program evaluation. Must have an adequate number of FMNP certified vendors or operate as an FMNP certified vendor. So again, that first, having an adequate number of FMNP vendors is for markets, and then operating as an FMNP certified vendor would be for our farm stand or roadside stand partners. A site capacity evaluation might need to be done if we haven't been to your location before. An application and projected budget might also be required. And then an internal review and programmatic assessment would be done internally with the Grow the Good staff, and then must show a demonstrated need. And then we do take into consideration other partnerships in your area as well. Implementation methods. So I know a couple of you guys are popping in the chat, and I think Chelsea might be individually responding to you guys, or she will be, I think, maybe shortly. So the 3 implementation methods that we have, and then we do kind of have a 3.5 option, or I guess a 4th option, that where you can create your own kind of. So we have different requirements for those different options as well. So every entity that completed an interest form has been assigned a pre-approved implementation method, and then that method would either be a receipt, zero balance, or a 50% off discount method.
Lori and Shannon, we actually have been assigned the 50% off
Okay, and
discount
then we're going to do
method.
just a really
I think
quick
you'll have
recap
to.
of those methods, and
I
then
mean, I
will
would
pass
think
it
that
over
would
to
be the
Chelsea,
case.
and then we're going to give you some examples to kind of help further define these methods of implementation. So for our markets, the options that we have are the receipt method, where a receipt from the FMNP certified vendor that the customer would then receive from that vendor, take to the market tent, and then the market operator would issue a one-to-one match currency. The second option is a zero balance method, where the zero balance card is checked at the market tent and a match is issued. The match is not to exceed $30, and then the 6 digits of the card number is both checked and recorded against the master list. So we'll kind of go into a little bit of what that means here in just a few moments. The 50% off discount method, where a 50% off discount off of the entire FMNP transaction would be done at the time of the transaction. So you would just essentially swipe for half of the valued goods that the customer would be purchasing. And then a zero balance modified method, where it's the same zero balance method listed above, but there is a coupon or kind of like an IOU that would be given as well. So we'll again touch on that a little more in the upcoming slides. And then for our non-market options, which are our farm stands and produce/roadside stands, would be the 50% off discount method, where again 50% off of a discount would be applied at the time of the transaction for the entire amount of the FMNP transaction. Okay, and I will pass it over to, nope, still me, just kidding. Okay. First method, sorry guys, is going to be the implementation receipt method. So a customer utilizing FMNP benefits with a certified vendor at the market is given a grow the good receipt after the transaction has been completed. The receipt is turned into the market tent and the customer receives the incentive. So a market currency is required for this implementation method. We, as Grow the Good, will audit applicable vendors throughout the FMNP season under this method as well. And then you are going to be required to input match transactions into the FMNP Incentive Program Tracking Survey. And with that survey, we have a little demonstration video, and then we will kind of talk a little bit more about what that looks like with other implementation methods as well. For the receipt method, kind of continued here, the transaction does occur with the vendor, and then the match is issued with the market operator. And then we kind of have like a little graphic with an additional example off to the right-hand side. The customer completes the FMNP transaction with the FMNP certified vendor at the market. The vendor issues a receipt to the customer for the transaction amount. The customer then submits that receipt to the market tent, and then if the receipt information is verified, then the market operator adds that transaction to the transaction log and issues a one-to-one match currency for the amount spent in that transaction. So within 48 hours of the market, we do ask that the market staff inputs the transaction information into the FMNP Incentive Program Tracking Survey. And then a specific example of this would look kind of like this little last paragraph here, where a customer brings an FMNP receipt for $10.50. The match issued would be 10. And then I did skip that little first part there, where if the amount does include change, 50 cents, 75 cents, whichever, then the matched amount must be rounded down to the lesser whole dollar amount. So again, they would get the receipt from the vendor for $10, and then they would take that receipt then to the market tent, get a receipt for $10. No, sorry. Oh my gosh, guys. Yeah, the tokens for the $10, which would be their match. Sorry. If I confused you, please let me know, because I think I might have confused myself. So we'll follow the little graphic here. The transaction, again, occurs with the vendor. They get a receipt. They take that receipt to the market tent. The market staff verifies the receipt information, tracks it on their transaction log, and then gives them either a token currency or the paper currency, whichever your market might have as their market script. And then they can continue to shop or come back, keep the change, like keep those tokens, whichever the customer would want to do at that time. And I will pass it over to Chelsea to discuss our zero balance method.
Can we ask questions, or you want us to wait till the end? Katie?
Oh, you can ask the question now, Mr. Muse.
So, can we go back? So, I know at one time you guys were saying that you may split the transaction logs from the FMP and the Snap. So, are we still combining FMP transactions and Snap on the transaction log?
No, sir. They will be completely separate transaction logs, and we will show examples, or I guess like not even we will show the new format of the transaction logs on a later slide.
Okay.
They will be completely separate.
Is the incentive program tracking survey another log in addition to an FMP transaction log? Is that
so? Yes. So it is another verification method, especially, and we can talk. Well, we'll mention a little bit more later, but it is another verification method. But that verification method is across partners. The transaction log just represents what you do. However, this incentive program is not transaction based. I mean, it's transaction based, but it's not. The transaction is happening with the vendor. To ensure or mitigate the number of duplicates, we have to implement a tracking survey that way customers aren't receiving duplicates across individual partners through the program. So the survey solves a different, mitigates a different issue and is a second layer of verification.
Okay.
But we'll talk a little bit more about the survey and also give more information on who or which program implementation methods are required to input into the survey, and then which implementations are required to check the survey. So while we have different programs and different implementation methods, we have to have some type of interconnection to ensure that customers are only receiving incentives one time. And the survey is how we do that across different partners and across different implementation methods. And I do want to pause. I don't know, Bahia, was there a question? I saw you guys bringing the speaker closer. So do you guys have a question right now, or you're good? Okay, great. So the next implementation method that we're going to discuss is zero balance method. So for the zero balance method, an FMNP recipient receives a one-time incentive for $30 for their card zeroed out. So for the card having a zero balance. For this method, a market currency is required. An incentive cannot be given if the card is not zeroed or if an error message appears. Want to bring emphasis about the error message because recipients could have cards from previous years that are not reloaded. So they are coming to the market with a non-active card for that incentive or for that FMNP season, and those cards should show an error message. So in that event, you cannot give an incentive if it's not showing zero. Anything, if it's 2 cents, anything that's not zero should not receive an incentive based on the card. If the market is unable to check the balance of the card, an incentive cannot be given. So with this implementation method, the market needs to be able to check the card, or if you're utilizing a vendor, someone at the market needs the capabilities to check the card for that balance, whether that be the market itself through the market tent or a neighboring vendor that has the capacity to check card balances and then confirm that they are zero before the incentive can be given out. This implementation method is required to check the survey before issuing and input match transactions into the FMNP program tracking survey. So back to Mr. Muse's question, with this implementation method, it is not tied to individual transactions. So the transactions already occurred either at that market with another FMNP certified vendor, but we are incentivizing. So we are incentivizing that the card, or incentivizing the use of the card and the zeroing out of the card, which that shows me we want this underfunded, under-distributed program, but we want to show high redemption. So that is our purpose in providing incentives, is to show the need of this program and incentivize the use of it. So since this implementation is not tied to a transaction, this is why the survey is key. And those that are our partners that would implement the zero balance method have to check that survey to ensure that they are giving an incentive to a customer that has not received the incentive through the transaction-based methods or from another zero balance partner. So this is and I'll reiterate again, this is the only implementation method that is required to check the survey. However, this implementation method and also the receipt method are required to input into the survey. The next bullet, this option may not be feasible for all markets or even all of our partners. And the next bullet talks about a modification. So last year we allowed one partner to operate a modified zero balance method that included a coupon or IOU. This can be used to assist with token liability, but also just like with
Sorry,
currency,
Shannon and Lori, that's John's phone. Not phone, laptop.
At one time, and also you may have product and availability issues. The FMNP incentives can only be used with the FMNP benefits can only be used with certain vendors. However, our incentives can be used on all SNAP eligible products for our currency-based programs. If you would like to operate a modified zero balance method and utilize the coupon or IOU, then you would need to request approval to do so. But one of our contingencies, I guess like the most important contingency for us, is that customers must be given the option to receive tokens at that time or receive the coupon or IOU. So to Bahia's question in the chat, and I apologize, I'm trying to make sure I can keep up with the chat and also see the presentation. So IOU coupon, so a printed card for our currency-based systems, instead of giving them currency that can be used right at that moment. So we had a location give out printed cards, and then those customers then had to return a second time, and then could return their printed cards and then get tokens to then be utilized. So we understand that may be a method that some of our zero balance partners or prospective partners may want to utilize, but that just needs to get pre-approval to implement that extra step throughout that process or through that transaction. However, customers must be given the option to not get that IOU and get the currency in that moment. Yes, so IOU come back at a later date. And I guess the last little note that I want to make about that, if you are operating under this modification for the zero balance method, you will have to track on your transaction log and in the survey, not when you give out the tokens, but if you're giving the IOU before the tokens, when you give the IOU. So when that initial transaction of our incentive is occurring, whether that be on a customer that's getting the tokens first or a customer that's getting the IOU first, that is when the tracking of that program or with the program happens. All right, Katie, next slide. All right. So this just walks through the exact same slide, similar to the receipt with a nice diagram, but then also a little bit more information. So the transaction occurs with the vendor for this example as well. So FMNP benefits are still spent with FMNP vendors. However, when the customer cards are zeroed out, then the match is issued with the market operator. So the market operator checks the balance of the card
This wouldn't
first.
apply to us.
If the balance is zero, then the next step is that they're checking the master list or the survey spreadsheet to ensure that that customer card number has not already received a match. If the card number is listed, a match cannot be given. If the card number, the last digit of the card number is not within that survey, then the customer has not been issued a match, and therefore you can now issue them their $30 match. The market operator must complete the incentive tracking survey and record it on the transaction log, along with the last six digits of the card number, and also the FMNP type. That is the first time this is being mentioned. We do like to know whether or not it is senior FMNP or with FMNP. So that is a question that we would like you guys to ask during the transaction process. So the master list that we were just referring to, this is a spreadsheet. We're utilizing Google Forms for our survey. So this spreadsheet is automatically updated as soon as their new entries come in. So again, as this program grows, there are programs that are happening simultaneously, markets or even farm stands that are open at the exact same time. So as these entries are coming in real time, you're able to see if a person has already received an incentive. Also, while I'm on that point, we do understand that you may not have the capabilities to input in the survey in real time. But at the very least, for this implementation method, you must have the capabilities to check that spreadsheet in real time. However, survey entries can happen after the market or after the business day has ended, and our requirement is that it is at least 48 hours from the point or from the time of the transaction. So again, we want the most updated information at all times, especially within 48 hours for the spreadsheet. That I don't feel as though I need to go over that diagram. I think we all have a pretty good understanding. If anyone needs to go back to zero balance, we can definitely do that at the end of this call. But I do want to touch on the last implementation method, and this is a 50% off discount. This method is primarily utilized by our direct marketing farmers.
This would be us.
Their method of choice. However, a farmer's market could submit a request form to operate under this method. So a customer utilizing FMNP receives a discount on their transaction. The customer would only be charged for half the value of goods purchased on their card. You must notate the value of the purchase amount, so the value amount, and the charged amount on the transaction log. With this implementation method, the incentive does not have to be an even number. Katie mentioned in the receipt-based method, if it was $10.50 was the example on the FMNP receipt, you would have to round down to $10 of incentives. With this method, I'm trying now, I got to think of a number I have to round down. But if it is $21, yep, that's good. $21, the customer would get charged $10.50, and then the other $10.50 is billed to grow the good. A market can request to utilize this method, but the market must have the ability to process transactions on behalf of vendors, and reports must show individual vendor transactions. So a little bit more, transaction either occurs with the market operator or with a non-market vendor. So even for our direct marketing farmers, this implementation method is not happening in a market setting. This is for produce stands, roadside stands, farm stands, etc. The partner processes the FMNP transactions as a 50% off discount. The transaction is recorded on the transaction log, notating the value amount and the charged amount. We already gave an example of change, and that is, I feel like that's enough information for this slide. All right, we just talked about with the coupon, so the modified zero balance method and also the 50% off method. If you are a farmer's market, you need to submit a implementation method request to Grow the Good that is, or that does require approval by me prior to the completion of an agreement or amendment. Approval will be dependent on whether the entity has the capacity to operate under that method, but law protocols of the Farmers Market Nutrition Program and the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry. Okay. All right, market transaction logs. So here, Mr. Muse asked this question earlier. Last year, if you are an existing Grow the Good partner and operated both SNAP programming and FMNP programming last year, our SNAP and FMNP transaction logs were together. We mentioned, I think at the end of FMNP season, or maybe even during FMNP season, where we were getting these very lengthy transaction logs for partners operating both programs, that the transaction logs would be separate for the programs. So that way the correct information could be captured for the individual programs. So here are snapshots of the market transaction logs. These are for our market, farmers market partners and prospective partners, how the transaction logs would look. So you have your standard transaction log. This would be for our zero balance and also receipt-based programs. You would notate the transaction type, so whether it's senior FMNP or senior WIC, the last 6 digits of the card number, zip code. If you are asking whether or not they're a new customer, you're notating that in the new customer column. And then the final column is the match amount. For our zero balance partners, that number would always be $30. And for our receipt-based program or receipt implementation or receipt method, so many different words, though that column would be dependent on the value of the receipt. So another question in the chat. Oh, try to pull it back up. So are we requiring, so is Grow the Good requiring FMNP program partners to use the Grow the Good provided transaction log template for FMNP match transactions? So you do not necessarily have to utilize the templates that we have created. Every single template that we have created, we make that available to our partners. If you are utilizing your own forms, we at least ask that the information that we need be captured on that form. But the reason we are separating our SNAP and FMNP transaction logs is from the verification step of reviewing those, it became too much, especially when we had partners doing high volume SNAP and also in peak points in FMNP season. That is the reason why we are no longer accepting those as one singular form, but everyone on this call, you have the right, if you already have transaction logs or once we release or you're approved to be a partner, you will have access to these transaction logs. If you would like to modify them, make your own, maybe we have partners that request or capture additional information, you can do that as well. So yes, we would like to have separate transaction logs for SNAP match and FMNP match. Another thing that was a little bit different, and last year we captured 4 digits for SNAP. We captured 6 digits for FMNP. At this time, according to USDA, we are not allowed going for, and this would be something that we enact starting July 1. If you're a current group, Grow the Good partner for SNAP, if you're a prospective Grow the Good partner for SNAP, you are no longer allowed to capture those last 4 digits of the card number, and that's something that we will be implementing across all of our partners, to not capture those last 4 digits for SNAP transactions. We understand that that is a normal farmers market metric or a way that they track those transactions. We are having relevant conversations about that, but again, that also was a issue when we had both of those. So that has not been that may not have been a direct communication from FNS individually to markets. I believe that information is on FNS's website about the capturing. All of that is tied to the SNAP skimming. But this was information that I heard directly from FNS in December. So I think that they are working to promote that. But that has been directives that we have been told that FNS does not want the capturing of those numbers. So another issue that we ran into last year when we had both of these together, one was capturing 4 digits, the other was capturing 6 digits. When you're having a high volume of transactions, you forget that it's FMNP, you only capture 4. You forget that it's SNAP, you're only capturing 6. So having different requirements or different metrics that we're capturing for each transaction does lead to recording errors that we are also trying to alleviate. The next transaction log. Did I go back one slide, Katie? So we talked about the standard transaction log for markets. If it's a market operating under the 50% off program, this is how your transaction log should look. This is our example. Again, you can modify it.
So we're going to be using,
oh dear,
we're going to be using the 50% transaction log, but it's the non-market
transaction
one.
log. Again, the transaction
She'll
type,
show it on the next
last
screen.
6 digits, zip code, new customer, the exact same as the above transaction log. However, the only difference is how you are notating the valued amount. So what the value of that purchase is, and then the charged amount. So the charged amount is 50% of the valued amount. And if you are a market operating this program, you also have to notate the vendor in which you are processing that transaction on behalf of.
This is for us right here.
Right. And then for our non-market partners, we only have one transaction log, and that is 50% off. Again, transaction type, last 6 digits, zip code, new customer. That's all of the same. The only the valued amount and also charged amount is the exact same as the market 50% off, but you will see that there's no need to notate the vendor because you are the only vendor. So you are just notating your transactions that you are executing.
Okay, so the next little piece of documentation that we're going to show is our FMNP receipt. So we do have these in like tear off booklets that the market can give to individual vendors. And then as they're doing those FMNP transactions, they would complete the top half of this form, where they would put their vendor name, the date of the transaction, last 6 digits of card, the purchase amount, and then they would sign off, the vendor themselves. And then once the market tent staff gets this receipt from the customer, they would add their partner name, sign off, and then date. So at the time of verification of this receipt, the market staff would need to verify the vendor name and the last 6 digits of the card before issuing the match and then recording it on the market transaction log. And then these receipts must be submitted as documentation with the expense report.
This is if the market is using the Grow the Good
those the
program.
same receipts we used last year, or should we discard any receipts we had from last year?
I believe they are the same. I don't think we made any changes. They seem to work well for your like market operations, so they are the same.
Okay.
And then if you need any more, also let us know that too.
I just want to go back to that one real quick. So if you're operating under that method, you have to use our receipts. So if you operate under that method and you're approved to do so, again, if you need more receipts, please let us know prior to the season starting. So that way we don't want you to run out. And then if you will be new to operating under this method, we will send you receipts to get you started, but please also check and monitor your inventory and alert us when you need more. We already have these on hand, and we incur the expense of shipping these to you.
Thanks, Chelsea. And then again, just a little summary of our FMNP Incentive Program Tracking Survey. As Chelsea mentioned, it is a Google form. So we have the link here to the survey, which again, we will PDF this, and then we'll probably have to hyperlink it separately because the PDF versions don't actually keep the hyperlink through. So we'll ensure that you guys have links to these, both the survey and the master spreadsheet. And then again, the methods that input into this survey are zero balance and receipt, again, within 24 hours of your market day. And then method that checks this survey before issuing the incentive is going to be the zero balance. And then we won't share, so we'll share this once you guys sign your agreement or amendment.
I don't think this applies
and then
to
we'll
us.
make sure that you guys have everything that you need to operate efficiently from there. And then the next slide, we are going to do a quick walkthrough of the incentive program tracking survey, both like filling out the survey and then on the back side of that spreadsheet, searching to make sure that the card has not already received a benefit. So this is a voiceover, so I am also going to mute. And then if you have any questions after this, we can pause for those as well. So I'm going to go ahead and play this.
Katie, I think you need to stop share and then reshare and enable this time. Yeah.
I was going to ask if you guys could hear it, because it waited a second before I heard any audio. So then I was like, okay. Share sound, presentation. All right,
Here is the Grow the Good FMNP Incentive Program Tracking Survey. This is how the survey will look for entities that are inputting into the survey. Again, the entities that will be responsible for inputting into the survey are those operating under the receipt method or zero balance method.
Neither apply to us.
The first item that you will select when inputting into the survey is the date of the transaction. The next, you will select your partner name. For this example, I will be utilizing the Crescent City Farmers Market. If you operate a entity that operates multiple locations, you will need to select the location in which this transaction occurred. If your entity only operates one location, you will select not applicable. Next, you will select the type of match. This is based on your implementation method. For the Crescent City Farmers Market, I will be selecting one-time $30 match. The next section moves into customer information. The customer that I'm currently distributing a match for is utilizing a senior FMNP card, and the last 6 digits of their card number are 676789. However, you can see in this example, I did not capture the last digit. The survey will not allow you to proceed unless 6 characters are inputted. So this alerts me that I now need to go back and capture the last digit of their FMNP card number. Next, I will be inputting the zip code of the customer. And then the final 2 questions are optional. if this is your first time using FMNP at this market, and then how did you hear about us? Again, we would love for these questions to be answered. However, we understand that you may not be able to capture responses for these questions with all customers. So for this example, I will show that we did not capture these responses for the customer. Finally, you will hit submit. Your submission has now been recorded, and we can see our latest submission right here on the spreadsheet. All entities that are responsible for inputting and or checking the FMNP tracking survey prior to distributing an incentive will have viewer access to this spreadsheet. The way that you will check to ensure that you are not issuing an incentive to a cardholder that has already received an incentive is you will hit, if you're using a computer or tablet, Control Find, and that is Control F, and then type in the card number, the last 6 digits. So remember, the customer that I just distributed incentive for, the last 6 digits were 676789. And as you can see, if this customer came back the following day, I would check the card or check the spreadsheet for this card number and then be able to see that this card number is within the spreadsheet, meaning the customer has already received an incentive from this program. And that is navigating the FMNP Incentive Program Tracking Survey and Spreadsheet.
Let me ask you guys a question. So if I have 50 FMP transactions, I got to go through that survey 50 times? Get them all in?
That is, yes, that is the only way to do it in Google Form. The only other method would be to, if we were doing this in SurveyMonkey, we could do a bulk ad. But unfortunately with SurveyMonkey, the issue that we had is that it was not able to be in a spreadsheet that would be uploaded in or updated in real time. Updated in real time so that it could be checked, because the zero balance method partners have to check the survey. If they don't have the ability to check the survey, they cannot issue the transactions. And if it is not available to them, then that is how we have the issues of incentives being distributed multiple times through multiple methods. With receipt method, it is not as big of a deal because they're getting that incentive as they spend it. But we had multiple instances last year of recipients receiving incentives through the receipt method and then going to a zero balance partner and then obtaining the incentive through that method. We can talk and see if there are any other ways that we can bulk upload, or if it is captured in a spreadsheet via the transaction log. And I forgot to mention that both of our transaction logs will be available in spreadsheet form. So the only solution that I have at this time for an entity, and again, we use this incentive tracking survey last year. There were I had a sticky note on my desk. We had over or almost 2,000 transactions inputted across 3 partners. So the ability, and these were some larger scale partners, so the ability of multiple transactions you have within 48 hours to upload those transactions to the survey. We understand that everyone does not have the capabilities of doing them in real time, but the only solution, because the survey has to exist, otherwise we can't have the zero balance implementation method, and the survey exists for that method. But if a partner was utilizing our spreadsheet, to track FMNP transactions, then we could copy those from the spreadsheet and upload them to the survey. And that is one of the things that we will be doing for the 50% off partners is from the spreadsheet, from their Excel transaction log or Google Sheet transaction log, copying those data points and then putting them into the survey spreadsheet, because we'd had to do that at the end of last year also for transactions that weren't inputted into the survey. Katie and I have the capabilities as editors on that spreadsheet to copy entries in and also it's like bulk add and manually input on the back end. But we just are not able to give a partner those capabilities for the instance that things are accidentally altered, deleted, especially if it is an entry by another partner. So because these aren't partner specific, this is across the entire program. The only workaround, Mr. Muse, at this time would be to use a Excel to input those transactions, and then we can copy those from the spreadsheet into the survey.
Okay, yeah, if you have that, I'll definitely take that because, putting in the date and one-to-one match for 50 transactions, it gets kind of repetitive and redundant. So eventually you're gonna make some typos or some stuff.
Yes, and I mean that's one of the things, and we weren't able to show that, but that's why we have, and we'll talk about that, like our auditing, because we have to then go back and check all of that. So for every transaction log, for all of that, we go and we cross-check the survey to ensure that nothing is missed, to ensure that, because we've had instances of the card number is one way on a transaction log, a different way in the survey. You have multiple or duplicates. So I thought I inputted it, or I thought I didn't input it into the survey, so I'm inputting it again. So that's we do multiple verification steps to ensure that that is the most accurate, because that is the only thing that our partners across each other have to check. Bahia, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. You're a little bit low. So if you can pull it.
I'll try and talk louder. So it feels like this is just an instance of maybe not using the right tool for this data management side. It seems like the solution could be something more along the lines of each partner having their own shared spreadsheet that has locked cells and editable cells, so that we can bulk enter the data, but only have access to some of the cells. The formulas can all be locked. And then you, as the owner of those spreadsheets, would then be able to write formulas to consolidate the inputted bulk data into a singular spreadsheet. So I know the Google form and SurveyMonkey, they all look really nice on the user side, but it feels like it's not quite the right tool for this. So I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to explore different tools that would be more efficient and therefore be a better use of our time for this program.
We have explored some other possibilities. I think we also received some recommendations on even other partners wanting to still utilize a survey, but a survey that then told you if the card number was automatically already in there, and it would send an error code being personalized. We have explored, I think at this time, this is the method or the tool that we will be utilizing, especially with the short period of time that we have now in between onboarding new partners, accepting our partners that are existing and approving them for this method, and the start of FMNP season. I do think that there are some things that we can individually talk to partners that may have. So we understand that our receipt-based programs did not have to worry about the survey last year. Our 50% off partners, the survey also checking the survey and inputting into the survey is not a responsibility that you have to worry about. I think this is more for a new layer for receipt and then an existing layer for zero balance. So we can, since we already know that we're making available the Excel or Google Sheet versions of the transaction logs, that being a fix for some locations in the interim through this FMNP season. And then we can also, if you have suggestions on other methods, we can see if those are methods that can be implemented within a month, really, or if there are suggestions that we would need to forego to the 2025 FMNP season.
I'm muted and they can't see my video, but I'm recording for
All right,
Shannon
I think
and
this
Lori.
is, Katie, is this still you? Or is it?
I'll let you know when I'm
This
done.
one is me. No, this one's you.
All right, so program reporting. So again, this is information, and again, we want to be transparent on what the reporting requirements are. At this stage, we are more worried about each of our partners, current partners or prospective partners, but in both cases, FMNP is not a program that you are currently operating under or Grow the Good. So what the reporting requirements will be, but again, if you are approved to be a Grow the Good partner under FMNP or approved to add an FMNP incentive program to your existing partnership, all of this information you will have available in your partner drive. So we have an existing partner drive that if you're a new partner, you will then have access to. And if you're an existing partner, this information will be updated. So for our market partners, and I guess for all partners, this is a change. For our existing partners, Grow the Good is moving towards completely monthly reporting. There will be no more weekly reporting for Grow the Good. Or if you're an existing partner, your SNAP program will remain weekly until June 30th. And then your SNAP program will start to be monthly in July. If you're doing FMNP program, again, these are now recorded separately on separate transaction logs. So FMNP will begin to be a monthly reported program in June. So reports are due monthly. It will follow the monthly reporting schedule and due dates. Again, all of that will be available to our prospective partners if approved. You will have to complete for market partners transaction log, reimbursement forms, and then if you are a 50% off partner, you would have to do the solely market report would be included in that monthly packet. And then if you are receipt based, you would have to submit copies of those FMNP receipts. For our non-market partners, your transaction logs would just be due weekly. We will have a weekly submission for that. And then on a monthly basis, you would just submit to us your solely market report. And again, for that solely market submission, that would be via or you would see the monthly reporting schedule and due dates to submit that. For our prospective partners on this call, for reporting, we have paper reporting option where you send it to us via email, and we also have an electronic reporting option through SurveyMonkey. And so you would have the option to either submit this to us via email or upload documents via SurveyMonkey. Additional information. So FMNP amendments and agreements will be valid until December 9th, 2024. Incentives cannot be issued or dispersed after November 30th. Currency-based incentives can be redeemed after that date. So if you have given out tokens, given out paper currency up until November 30th, on November 30th, those currencies and forms of payment can still come back in. Solely market reports are required for all 50% off implementation methods via our partners and or via
that applies to us,
direct
the solely market
farmers.
reports.
And if you are a market operating a 50% off 50% off method, Grow the Good reserves the right to request solely market reports from those vendors to verify the transactions. So partners interested in receiving administrative or operational support for the implementation of their FMNP incentive program must complete the support request form. If approved, to add on FMNP or to start or to come on as a FMNP incentive program partner, you will be given the form to request administrative or operational support. Program management and auditing. So the FMNP program or incentive program will be audited throughout the season. We will input the data from our 50% off partners into that survey. We verify solely market reports. We cross-check transaction logs and the survey as our primary verification method. We check the survey for duplicates. That is something that we do ongoing throughout this program. And then we also conduct a final audit, and that serves as our secondary verification method. And then I'm going to turn it over to Katie to do next steps.
Alrighty, so next steps for our current Grow the Good partners. We want you guys to double check and ensure that your vendor demographics and participation acknowledgement surveys and spreadsheets are updated. So if you've had any new vendors join your markets, if you want to just take a look at those in your individual partner folders within our Grow the Good drive, you'll find the spreadsheets there. If you want to send us an email and ask, we can send you who we have that information for, whichever works best, but we just want to make sure that we have all of that information updated. And then for prospective partners, we will be in touch with you guys regarding the scheduling of any site visits that we're wanting to do, the application, and then a projected budget spreadsheet that we'll send to you guys as well. So be sure to keep an eye out on your emails for further information regarding those next steps. And then if approved, we would ask that you guys train and notify your vendors and staff of processes and procedures, sign your agreement or amendment, and then implement the program on site. So now we will turn it over to you guys for any questions that you might have regarding your specific implementation method, if you need further clarification on how that might look for you, or reporting questions, kind of anything that you might have, you can either drop those in the chat, or if you want to unmute, feel free to do that as well.
I'm just curious. Sorry. I'm so sorry. Just curious. So prospective, right? Partner here. So this one's the FMNP implementation meeting. Will you have another one for SNAP?
That's a great question. So for SNAP, so how we usually handle SNAP partnerships, I guess for entities, once they are SNAP authorized, we do implementation meetings. We have in the past, we've done implementation meetings one-on-one. We are moving to a group onboarding, so there would be a similar implementation meeting once we get to the group onboarding for SNAP implementation. Talk about how that looks. But in the past, we have done one-on-one partner meetings to talk about the individual SNAP program at each individual location.
Okay, thank you.
We can also let you know, I know we're planning on scheduling those, or I guess the Food Access and Nutrition Incentive Program workshop session soon. So we'll definitely circle you in, and that's kind of like the initial informational session, if you will, where we'll talk about what the SNAP application looks like. I know that you guys have already had done that once before, but that way you guys know, or you have a specific designated time to ask us questions based on the information we present there as well. So we'll be sure to circle you guys in on those future sessions also.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Chris, do you have another question?
Yeah, because on the monthly reporting, I'm assuming you just take all of your transactions from the weekly, whatever you've done. But do you have to do them all in one one batch transaction. You can't save and go away and come back, right? You have to do it all at one time and submit.
Is that question related to SurveyMonkey?
Yes.
So you're referencing the weekly log and how you're doing the
Yes.
that secondary sheet for each location or
Right.
for each market date. That would go away. It would look just like our monthly reporters. It would be one entry that totals all of your individual weekly months or markets, not months. All of your individual weekly months would be one total, and then you would bulk upload the individual transaction logs as your supplemental documentation, but you would not have to report on each individual market separately.
Okay. I guess I just have to take a look and play with it.
Yeah, so we'll send
Yep.
out a paper version and send out more clarity, but I understand what you're saying. Like now you're reporting each individual market day since you operate one market per week. You would not be reporting for each individual market. The only documentation for that market would be the transaction log, and everything that you submit or that report would be a total of all of that. So you're submitting one number to us.
Okay. All right. I had to play with it. So the only thing we submit weekly then is the FMP survey transaction.
So yeah, if you are operating that method, then you would then have to submit to us either you're inputting into the survey or then sending us that Excel document so that way we can upload it into that survey. But that would be the only weekly
Okay. All right.
documentation required. So.
And we know that with this change too, for the people who are currently operating as partners, there's going to be some learning, like I don't want to call them curves, but it's going to be a learning process for the both of us because we have an idea of what we think that will look like coming back to us. So I think we'll just spend the first few weeks or a couple of months to try to figure out how and the timing and everything. But we'll definitely communicate if we have any questions with you guys on reporting and stuff like that. So.
And also to reiterate, we have is it almost half of our partners currently report monthly? We already have monthly spreadsheet, or we already have monthly SurveyMonkey. We already have monthly paper documents. The only difference is that the FMNP and SNAP will be separate on paper, and then in SurveyMonkey, it's not going to be two for our partners that currently operate both programs in July when they're both monthly. It's not two separate survey links. Are you uploading? Are you reporting for SNAP? Yes, you'll get that SNAP section. Are you reporting for FMNP? Yes, you'll get that FMNP section. If you hit no to SNAP, you're only reporting for FMNP. You only get the FMNP section. But again, for months, it would just be a monthly snapshot is the only information that you're inputting. And then as your supplemental documentation for all of our partners that currently submit the solely market reports, the transaction logs, those are still uploaded just as you currently do as supplemental documentation. But thank you, Mr. Neese, for that. And again, we will have additional information for our existing partners, especially those that will be transitioning from weekly reporting to monthly reporting. I do want to ensure that, again, this is time for any and all questions, especially those that did not operate an FMNP incentive program last year. If there are questions about how the program works, specific implementation method questions, we can go back in this presentation to review any of those materials. So that way you have a really good understanding of it. Each of you were given a pre-approved implementation method For our non-farmers market partners, unfortunately, the 50% off is the only way to feasibly, okay, can't say it right now. It's been too long. Is the only way to operate the program at this time. But if you are a market-based or farmers market and would like to operate the program under one of the other implementation methods other than what you've been pre-approved for, please let us know. For new entities or entities that did not operate FMNP incentives last year, we went based on what we figured would be the easiest for you to implement. However, now that you know your operation the best and that you now see all of the implementation options, if you feel as though that you would prefer another implementation method, please send us an email. If you have questions about the one that you were assigned compared to another implementation method, please ask that as well. We did all of the methods that we have available, we trialed last year. We had at least one partner operating in all of these methods, and that is why we made all of these available. So we audited the program. Did I find it? Last year, we distributed $129,493.50 of FMNP incentives with our zero balance option. And that was the survey. So last year, the only survey entries were for zero balance partners. There were 2,204 entries. For the receipt method, there were 424 receipts. And then 50% off, there were 442 50% off transactions. So we've seen each of these methods. We've seen what worked, what didn't work. And that is the changes that you would see this year, besides the one-time incentive amount that did change from last year to this year. So we have made considerations and are open to making additional ones, but had a lot of conversations, and even with our program committee had a wrap up and talked about what worked, what didn't work, and how to move forward and do this. This is only the second time a statewide incentive for FMNP has ever happened. So again, this year we will probably learn even more, especially when we're on track to offer this at twice as many sites this year in comparison to last year. But out of respect for everyone's time, I know we're a little bit over. Katie and I will stay on if you have any specific questions that you would like to discuss. If not, thank you for joining us today, and hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. But again, if you have questions and would like to get those answered, Katie and I will be able to stay on at least for another 20 to 30 minutes or so. So we, again, want to ensure that we are answering any questions that exist at this time. So thank you again for joining. The PDF of this presentation will be emailed out. And if you are about to leave and you think of questions, you can email Grow the Good or Katie or I directly.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
But yes, I'm pretty sure we emailed her pre-assigned program. It wasn't bolded, but it was in that email for the Zoom or the calendar invite, or Zoom invitation to register for today's meeting. We will be hosting another one of these meetings. I know you have information to share with her. So we did have a few other people or a few other entities that were not able to join us today. So we will be doing this again, and we will share that with her as well. So just an opportunity to chat with us and ask us any questions directly.
I've been recording this whole time, so I'll be sending it to them. Anyway, thank you, ladies. We appreciate you.
Thank you.